Mm, hello. Oh, that's embarrassing. Hello. Um, it is. What time is it? 11:40 p.m. Very, very close to midnight. Once midnight hits, that'll be my first day being 21. Um, I started thinking recently about very, very recently, as in like a couple days ago, about like the people that you know. I might have made a video about this, or I might have deleted it, but it's something about a statistic talking about how you slowly replace all your friends, and after 7 years, the people that you associate with are completely different than the people that you used to hang out with 7 years ago. And again, that happens over the course of 7 years. You don't just up and change friends all at the same time. And I think about that a lot. I think about the kind of person that I was 7 years ago, and maybe not even 7 years ago. Maybe even less than that. Maybe like three, maybe two. Um, I think 3 or 4 years would be a better measurement of that. Especially during your formative years, you kind of change. What I found was every time I had to change schools, um, my 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 friend group would change. Um, but because I lived in one district pretty much my whole life, um, a lot of the same people were in the same schools, so um, we tended to get pooled in the same place. So it made it a lot easier. Like I wasn't just walking into a classroom full of strangers. But even at that, walking into those different classrooms, um, you start to associate with different people. And then so recently I've been thinking about, um, what kind of a person am I now compared to the person that I was maybe 3 or 4 years ago? And it's just weird introspecting of like, um, would I be happy with the person that I was 3 or 4 years ago? And of course, a lot of people would say no, because I think that's a pretty honest answer to give. Um, I mean, some people would be like, "Yeah, I was happy with myself," but I mean, like, that's acceptable. In my head, though, I feel like there's always room for improvement. I feel like if at any point you tell yourself, "I'm good," that's when you actually should start making some changes about yourself. Um, I don't like the idea of stagnation. Um, I think that as a person, you should always continue to evolve and learn and um, just adapt to new situations. Just um, grow as a person, basically. So now I'm thinking. I'm planning like a big outing with some friends of mine, and then I realize that these people are not people that I knew more than 2 years ago, honestly. Um, and I think about that a lot because maybe if this party thing happened maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the people that I would be inviting would be people that I've known um, for close to half a decade, maybe 3 or 4 years, you know. Um, but as time goes and as people drift apart and as people's like opinions change, kind of viewpoints change, kind of you kind of drift away from people, and then now, the people that I know, the people that I would consider to be my close friends, are not people that I knew during what I would say my formative years, which I think is really interesting to me, at least. Uh, the fact that, uh, like just milestones, like time sensitive milestones. What word am I trying to say here? Basically, uh, you know, who are people that you know when you turn 16, when you first learn how to drive, or you get that sort of freedom. What about when you're 18? You're a bit older, you know you're able to vote, or like just explore, just you have more freedom. Like, who are the people that you're with during that time? And 21, which I think is kind of like the last milestone, and then after that it's just adulthood. Um, Not saying that there's no milestones left after 21. I'm just saying like that's kind of like the big one that a lot of people pay attention to. You know, Now that I'm here, I'm looking around and like uh, these people, I love them, but they don't really know who I was 2 years ago. Like literally 2 years ago, like 2015 me is not a person that they knew. Maybe towards the end of the year, but that's that's being generous. I didn't really meet anyone. I didn't really meet any of the people that I hang out with until like um, last year, or some people I didn't even meet until like months ago, you know, and I would gladly just tell them my entire life story because to me, um, like being friends with someone does not need that kind of like time anymore. Um, I don't need to wait until like 2 or 3 years before I start unlocking all my hidden backstory. You know, uh, you just kind of you meet someone that you kind of like get along with, and then you're like, yeah, here's something about me. Here's some, let me know some things about you, type things. I just think that's really interesting how just time goes, and then um your value of friendship is not no longer measured by time, but more about just the general quality of the time that you spend together, which I think is kind of a no-brainer. Now that I'm saying it out loud, the more that I think about it, yeah, I mean, of course, it's not about how long you've known someone, but it's about how well you've known someone. I have a friend who, whenever I see her point out that she was my first friend ever, like and it's true. Like when I moved here, I didn't really know anyone, and um, and our teacher kind of paired us together because we were both Asian. That's pretty much the only reason. But we got along well, and we became friends, and you know, very very quickly, she had her own clique, and then I had my own set of friends, and we would know of each other, but we wouldn't really talk much per se. But there was always that feeling of like, I could always come up to that person and say hi, and there'd be that thing where it's like you do that thing where you're like, oh my god, we should catch up, and oh my god, and then you never plan far enough ahead that you actually ever get to hang out ever, and then you do this until you die. Um, but yeah, uh, I thought about like the last time that I saw her, and then she still again made that same point of, oh my god, like I was his oldest friend, and I'm like, yeah, but I the measurement of time that we were friends does not really go into the quality of how much we were friends. We barely hung out in the last 5 or 6 years. That in the decade plus that I've known this person, um, I can't really say that I can't really say that we hung out for very long, quite honestly. And so I'm looking back. I'm thinking about the kind of person that I was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and the kind of people that I associated myself with. Uh, Not to say that it's not to say I don't know if I would say, I don't know if I would say that they're completely different. I mean, at the very end of the day, at the end of the day, your friends are just people that you get along with. And I would like to say that my viewpoints have remained somewhat consistent in the way that the people that I knew back then, I would still want to be friends with if I just met them today. That's kind of the measurement that I'm, like that's kind of like the thing that I'm thinking about. Like um not necessarily to do with the friends that I associate with, but basically me as a person. If I met myself today, like if me from 4 years ago just walked around and then I had a conversation with them today, would I want to be friends with that person? And you know I don't know. There's always that thing of like, um, you kind of look back on yourself, and again, in my head, it's always just like there's always so much more room for improvement, and I don't know if I could handle seeing myself from 3 or 4 years ago, because honestly, like, past me back then did, like, would would have some pretty radical views on things, or like more so of a know-it-all than I am now. Like, I'm like, I acknowledge my idiocy. Like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Back then, um I get this a lot, actually. My cadence apparently makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about, even though I could have no idea what I'm talking about, which I think is really funny. Uh, and I've never had the opportunity to use it to my advantage, because every time I try, it's like, yeah, you're full of shit. So I was like, okay. So it just happens. It goes off whenever it does. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I would be friends with myself from 3 or 4 years ago. Uh, but funnily enough, I would be friends with the friends I made back then now. But I'm not sure. But that's easier to say than if I would get along with myself from 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, there's a good chance that I won't get along with people that I know from 3 or 4 years ago. There are people that I know or knew in elementary school, and I know of them, not now, but maybe like a year ago. Complete and total dicks. Like, they've completely changed. They've had their own life. They've changed. They've formulated their own opinions, and it does not align with mine. And I'm just like, I just think that's super interesting. The fact that people can change so much, and the fact that you could have a history with these people. You know, people who could have very, very opposing views that you hold now. The fact that the fact that at some point in your life you knew this person when you both agreed on things, and now they're completely different. The fact that you can associate with that person, I think that's just really, really interesting. What would happen if you had stuck with that person? You know, what if I met myself 3 or 4 years ago and I became friends with myself for 4 years? Would I be friends with myself for 4 years? Probably not. Like, uh, I would say my sense of agency is not nearly as high as it was back then. I would say that 3 or 4 years down the line, you meet some new people that kind of give you that push, and then at some point you learn to move on your own. It's kind of like learning how to ride a bike. Like, you have, at some point in your life, people that will give you hold on to the back of the bike as you go along, and then they let you go, and then you start pedaling by yourself. You know, that kind of thing. I don't know. It's late in the night. I'm tired, and I just thought I had a thought in my head. Those things where, like, it makes sense when you're thinking it, and then you say it out loud, and it's like, oh, it's garbage. But for so long that I've already talked for so long that I'm like, screw it, it's going up. I just think it'll be funny. But yeah, that's those are my fleeting thoughts. I'm gonna I'm gonna go maybe wash dishes. I don't know. I didn't wash my dish. I ate food, and I just came here and sat, and I was like, oh, I should probably clean those. So I'm gonna do that. And I hope everyone that watches this video has a fantastic day, and I'll see you all next time.